Welcome to Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman, a podcast celebrating unconventional choices and asking curious questions through the lens of a happy, child-free life. Every week, I chat with experts on today's most interesting topics, inspiring us to think differently, live intentionally, and find fulfillment on our terms. Whether you're child-free or seeking a space where parenthood isn't part of the conversation, you are welcome here. It's not about comparison, it's about possibility. Let's get curious together. I met today's guest at a dinner party in Toronto, and our conversation made me curious about a topic I didn't really know existed: womb wisdom. Yes, you heard me say that right. Womb, WOMB, wisdom. For women, the way we relate to our bodies and the way that relationship impacts our self identity is complicated. And for those of us not raising children, the idea of pelvic health or womb wisdom is probably something we don't really think about. Maybe we've never even heard of this stuff before. That's where Suzi Zobrist comes in. She's a somatic therapist and the founder of Root Medicine Healing, where she supports women in reconnecting to their bodies, regulating their nervous systems, and honoring the sacred within, whether through body work, ritual, or everyday presence. Her work is a prayerful invitation to return to the rhythm of nature and the wholeness of who we truly are, especially for those of us who want to walk a deeply fulfilling life path. Welcome, Suzi.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. When we met this spring at this dinner party that we were both a part of, I was instantly intrigued by your answer to that all too common question: what do you do? I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Pelvic health, womb wisdom, I need to know more. So, can you start by just kind of helping us understand, when I use these phrases, what does that even mean? What is pelvic health care, or how does this relate to the womb?
Well, I love this question because even the term pelvic health sounds kind of clinical and medical. And yes, it is. And it also, there's other elements to it. And part of what I want to just begin with is like, how did I even get interested in all of this in the first place? And when I was 30 years old, I ended up with a ovarian cancer diagnosis and ended up having a radical hysterectomy and found myself in menopause as a young woman and really lost my womb and my ability to have biological children. And at that time, there wasn't any support for me on the other side of having this life-changing experience and this massive surgery. And I felt completely numb and disconnected from my womb space. And as a young, woman, I didn't really necessarily think about my womb in the way that I do now. It was like we think about our womb, we think about menstruation or pregnancy or these kinds of things when we think about our womb. But when I lost my womb, I realized, oh, wow, this is actually the center of my power. And I had this moment of realizing, who am I as a woman without a womb? Basically, I felt like I had been castrated, and it brought in, which is a pretty intense word to use, but this is truly, what I've been navigating through. And I had to learn how to reconnect back into the center of me. And then this deeper inquiry of, why did cancer take root in my womb, in the center of my femininity? And it took me on this long journey then of really learning about what is pelvic health, what is womb healing work for my own personal journey. And then as I kind of dove in there deeper and deeper, I realized I'm not alone in this. I want to say that all of the folks that have a womb space, however you might identify, there are so many things that can go awry in this space. We see it in irregular menstrual cycles, it might be pelvic pain, incontinence, pelvic organ prolapse, might be tension, and we see endometriosis, fibroids, cysts. And really what I have seen then is that our pelvis is shaped like a bowl, and we are meant to hold in this space. Like every month, our uterus is, if we're still menstruating, is moving through her rhythm and will be filling and creating this lining and then releasing. And so lots of things get kind of held in this space. And what I want to say about what gets held here is it's our life, it's our experiences, it's the things that we have gone through, what we have endured. There are so many things in our external world that we are impacted by, our culture, our society, the way that we are brought up. All of these things impact the center of us, who we are as women, how we identify, even thinking about our sexuality, our place of power, the shame that gets held in this space, our worthiness or our feelings of unworthiness. And so then it begins to accumulate. And even we live in such a culture of living 110%, doing everything, such a fast and furious lifestyle. And so then we end up having this chronic tension and holding that shows up here in our pelvic space. And this area of our body is our foundation, it's our roots, it's our home, our security, it's our well-being, it's really the seat of our life force. And so then we end up having all of these symptoms, issues, challenges, difficulties that show up in the pelvic region. I mean, the list of what we might call women's health issues, many of them root or stem from the pelvic space. And so then we go to see our doctors and we're told to just do Kegels, just contract your pelvic diaphragm muscles, which are most commonly called our pelvic floor. You got to do pelvic floor exercises and tone and strengthen your yoni and all of these things. But it's so much more than that, right? And because this area is so intimate, and like, who do we talk to if we're leaking urine or if we're having pain with intercourse? I mean, it's like we can go and talk to our doctors, but these aren't the kind of conversations that we're having with just anyone because they're intimate and they're private. And this is really then very much the space that I hold. I mean, women are coming to me and telling me I want to say even our most intimate, even embarrassing, shameful feelings, thoughts, sensations, like things that we maybe wouldn't ever want to admit. And they're coming to me because they're wanting care. They've gone to their doctors, what they have received for advice. And oftentimes, what is being received is some radical, like you need to have a hysterectomy, right? I mean, that's pretty extreme. There are so many other things that can be done to care and tend for the root of your body. And this is then, really what I hold as what I think of as womb wisdom, for us to learn again about our own bodies, to place our own hands on our belly and take a breath there, to learn how to downregulate our nervous system and listen in to what is our body, what does it need, what is it communicating with us. We aren't taught about our own female anatomy. We aren't taught how to care for ourselves. We aren't taught how to relieve tension and stress that is literally held at the root of our pelvic bowl. And so this is, very much where I am wanting to bring education in, which is what sparked this whole conversation, to learn about what is pelvic health and, who is it for and what do we do, right? And every woman has their own story that is held within their body. And so very much it's about learning to listen and to honor and to tend to our own individual stories and the symptoms that we might be having. It's like there's something underneath that. So this is kind of that deeper listening that we can do, and that all of us, I just feel like there's always something there for us that we can tend to, right? If those of you that are listening, if you're having symptoms in your pelvic space, it can shift, it can change. There is something that we can do.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is the perfect way to start the episode because I have a million things to ask you about. And first, thank you for sharing your personal story. I did not know that from our initial conversation. And I'm sorry that you had that experience of cancer at such a young age, and I can only imagine it's like you said, like, maybe before that diagnosis and that illness happened, maybe you didn't think about that space so much in your everyday life as a healthy 30-year-old. Then the evolution from that to being on the other side and having those pieces of you literally ripped out, what happens to the mind, right? And your own identity through that process. And maybe we start there because I do want to get into the tactical pieces of this. I think exactly what you said about symptoms and our shame and embarrassment and the way this kind of plays with our identity and all of that I want to get into. But maybe we start with this piece of how powerful these body parts, this region of our body really is when you use the word like root. Then I feel like, okay, wait, like I'm getting it. This feels like it's the base, the foundation of who we are. We don't learn about our anatomy nearly like we should. Maybe that's the case for all people. It's definitely the case for women. And, we think like the heart, the brain, those kinds of things with like, who are you? How do you describe yourself? Like we go intellectual, we go brain first. But can you share a little bit more like those pieces of what it really means to be a woman regardless, like outside of being able to have children, wanting to have children, the motherhood thing, the traditional, like find a partner, settle down, have a baby. Like that's what society sometimes convinces us is the definition of being a woman, but that's not the path for everybody. So just tell me more about how this connects to our identity.
So part of what I'm feeling just having you share this is that so much of our culture is based on a male body. So I feel like I want to preface it with this for some reason is that we are taught that our days are based on a 24-hour cycle. And so in a male bodied person, their testosterone peaks first thing in the morning and then wanes in the evening. And so even the way that we are taught to exercise, to eat, to move in our everyday life, even the way we could say, oh, our work lifestyle is set up is very much based on a male bodied hormonal and energy cycle and rhythm. And for a female bodied person, we move in a moon cycle over a month's time. And so our hormones have different ebbs and flows. And so during ovulation is going to be like morning time, right? Peak of the day where we have peak of the energy. And our menstrual cycle time on the other end of the spectrum is going to be more of the evening time. And so the rhythm and flow for a woman or a female bodied person is going to look a little bit differently. It's going to have a longer cycle and a longer flow. And so I feel so much about that as a woman, whether you're menstruating or not, because it impacts us, is that we move in a different rhythm and cycle in our day-to-day life. And can we begin to actually pay attention and honor ourselves and where we are in our rhythm? And we have different rhythms in life too. We have rhythm when we're younger. We have rhythm when we're in our midlife, right? We have rhythm when we're in our later years. And even I know that there aren't as many mothers that are listening in, but there's also a rhythm when you're in an active parenting phase because you're tending to children, right? And so we have those rhythms of life too. And so this to me, like, what does it mean to be a woman? It means to really honor and listen in to what is true for you, not what we are being taught on the outside of our life and our culture. We live in very much a patriarchal society where even, I want to say, women's female anatomy, the arousal tissues, have just only recently been mapped and like learned about in more detail. Now, male arousal anatomy is primary, and we haven't learned too much about female anatomy and about arousal and all of these things. And it's gotten so cloaked in shame, like to be a turned on woman in the world, right? And even when I use the words turn on, which is I love to use the word turn on because I'm not just talking sexually turned on. I'm talking about living a vibrant life, doing what you love, following your passion, right? Listening to your inner rhythms. And in some ways, I want to say, disobeying what we are disobeying what we are taught out there to be the good girl, to be the nice girl, to follow along, to go with the 9 to 5, to, shape our life in the way that we are taught in a more patriarchal, masculine world. And I'm not here to say, I'm not anti-male, anti-men, anti-masculine, not at all. I'm just saying that we have been taught to live a certain way that maybe is actually not in our true rhythm as a woman or as a female bodied person. And so this is like, can we actually learn to attune, to listen in to the rhythms of our womb? This is the womb wisdom. And this might mean that on the days that you are menstruating, you need to have more rest, right? And to move it a little bit different rhythm on those days when you feel a little bit more moody, right? Or
Yep, it's real.
like it's real, right? And instead of, again, we're taught, so much negativity around the rhythm and flow of our life and our cycle. Can we actually embrace it and celebrate it and really come into a place of sovereignty around it and power? And I really think of it as honor, like to really honor ourselves. And to me, this is about being a woman, is that we move in a different flow and rhythm. We're not all going to do it the same, right? And yeah, so that's kind of what's moving in me as you ask me that question.
I love that last line that we're not all going to do it the same. Like the goal here isn't, okay, we have a patriarchal structure. Now let's create a matriarchal structure where we all just fall in line with a slightly different start time or a slightly different work month. Like that's not what we're saying, right? It's about tuning in as an individual. So how do we do that? I love when you say like listening and breathing and pausing. Like, what does that look like? If I'm sitting here or someone listening is feeling like, wow, I think I'm actually super disconnected from what my body wants. Like I've been following my schedule, following my routine. Like I don't even know how to hear, these parts of myself or connect with them. Where do we start?
Yeah, this is such a great question. So there's so many ways that we can do this. And I am very much a body-based person. It's how I move in the world. And, I have been teaching movement practices, yoga for the last 30 years. I do offer body work, hands-on touch. This is very much where I'm coming from. And I have a really simple practice that I do for myself every day. That is, I get up in the morning, I go pee, I get a glass of water and I go and I stand outside and I face to the east and I open myself to the beauty of the day. Now, what does this relate to pelvic health? This is an opportunity for me to check in with myself. And I open up and every day is different. The weather is different. The temperature is different. There's bird song. There might be rain. There might be sun. And this very much teaches me how to attune to the greater cycles that are happening because we've got seasons and we all live in different places. We have different cultures and climates and countries that we are all living in. And so I feel my feet upon the earth. I drink in the scent of the air. I feel the light and the nature that is moving around me. And then right here at the beginning of my day, I have this one day ahead of me and I want to meet it. I want to bless my life, bless my day. So it gives me a moment to attune to the nature and then to feel into my own self. What is alive in me? What is moving in me this day? How am I feeling? And even what might be on the calendar for me for this day, and how do I want to meet it? And I just take a moment, and I love to bring my water with me because we are made of water. And I just always envision like the light and the color and the sound, like everything kind of infusing this water with that feeling. And then I just take a moment and just say a simple blessing. I always start with, thank you for my life today. And then whatever is there in front of me is like, I want to meet it in, I want to say in a good way, right? And there might have a certain blessing that I need to say. It might be like, you know, help me show up in a good way for this. And I just envision that I'm kind of laying out these blessings for my life. And I just speak a few simple words. I don't have to be out there long. It takes me a few minutes. I like to speak it out loud so that I can hear my own voice as opposed to just being in my head with it. And then at the end, I drink in that water. I don't necessarily have to drink all of it all at once, but I just bring that water in and I'm blessing my life. And this to me is the way that I attune to my life every day, right? And so then I'm blessing my life. And when I'm talking about womb, it's whole body, right? So yes, you have a womb. Yes, you have a pelvis, but you also have the all of you. And how do we attune? So I want to attune to this one beautiful day that is unfolding. It doesn't mean that I'm always feeling amazing standing out there. I might be really struggling and having a hard time. And so that might be part of what I'm speaking. Like, I'm having a hard time today. Help me connect back home to myself again. Right. Then I drink that water and then I begin my life and I live it and remembering that I've blessed myself. I'm going to do the best that I can out here in the world. Right. And then another way, a simple practice, is I love to just take a pause, place a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, closing the eyes, and then take a breath. It's like, oh, here I am. I can feel my own breath underneath my hands. What's here? What's alive in me today? And then there's something about attuning. Then we can start to focus in to what is moving. What are you feeling? What are you not feeling? Are there places that you feel numb? And I teach all of the women that come into my world how to bring their breath down into their belly. That's the womb space, right? And for many of us, we're kind of breathe up high or we're kind of caught into our mind. And it's like, all right, for us to actually feel what is real, we need to be able to bring our breath down into our belly and begin to attune here. And now I find that because our womb is like this place of holding, it's like the bowl, the chalice, the cauldron inside of us, we sometimes don't really want to feel what's happening in there because we might be aware of emotion, sensation, feeling, things that feel intense. And so this is also real that we might not want to feel what's here. And so there's always a time and a place, right? And I always want to encourage, all of us, those that are listening, take a moment to feel what's there. And it's like, woo, that feels kind of intense in there. Then we acknowledge it, right? Woo, there's a lot there. And can we then know that there might be some things that we need to look at or feel into or tend to inside of us and take the time to do that? It's one of the reasons why I love body work is because there's something about arriving on the massage table and it's warm and just to then receive touch. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay. There's some things here for me that I need to tend to. And it doesn't mean that we have to go and we get to decide how much we want to like dig in there and stir up. And, I always say that there's a time and place for everything. This is part of our sovereignty is we get to decide, what we want to tend to. But if we ignore what is there, this is what I see happens is that then we end up with lots of symptoms, right? This is when we start to have pain and disconnect and we start to have dis-ease that shows up in the womb is because there's been an accumulation of things that haven't been tended to. And this is very much then the work that I do with the women. And I see this over and over again is that we wait too long before we start to listen in and pay attention, bring our breath, bring our presence, and listen. What is the womb? What does it need? What does she need? Whatever, however you want to view it. This is one of as a woman, as a female-bodied person, this is one of our wisdom centers. And what does this wisdom center want us to know? Right. And this is part of through breath, through presence, through our own hands-on touch, we can begin to listen in and feel and even ask the question, what do you need me to know?
What a beautiful question. I am so inspired by everything you just said. And I'm so glad that you are here sharing this message because, I mean, you said so often we wait too long. I'm sure there are women who wait forever. Like, we just don't have this knowledge to even connect the dots between, okay, I have incontinence, or now I pee every time I laugh. Like you said at the beginning, there's such a long list of symptoms. I don't think most of us even connect, like, wait a minute, if I could get present, if I could listen, like, what else is happening with me in my life? What am I holding from an emotional perspective? And then how is that, coming out in these symptoms? Not to say that every medical issue in the world can be resolved through these things, like, that's not what we mean. But I do think there's a lot there. And I remember, just to share a personal story, where I was like forced aware of my pelvis. And I've had some issues in my young life, like nothing that I don't think most women have had, like irregular periods. They put you on birth control, right? All this stuff when you're kind of a teenager and you just do what people tell you to do. So there was that chapter. But more recently, before I got married, there was like 2 different nights where I had the most extreme pelvic pain. I was laying in bed, like I wasn't doing anything, and it just like hit me all of a sudden. And it was so bad. Like I thought I was going to throw up. I've had kidney stones before, and it felt like that intense. Like, so of course I'm like, oh my gosh, something's really wrong. And it would last for about 20 minutes and it went away. And then it happened a different time. And I went to the doctor, got all, ultrasound, all the tests, and like everything was fine. There was nothing wrong with me. Separately, I was getting a facial, talking to my facialist who has studied some of these things. And she was like, oh, I just wonder if there's something that you're really stressed about with the wedding or something. And, we hold so much tension and stress in this area. And I'm like, what? We're sitting here for me to get a facial. Like, what do you mean? And then, like, I thought about that. I got really quiet that night. I tried to be really present and like think into my mind. And this was all kind of around my wedding dress fittings. And I've shared on this podcast before, I've had a past with some disordered eating and body image stuff. And for some reason, like that whole process of wedding dress and like, this is the body I'm getting married in, it really stressed me out, but not really consciously. Like consciously, I was like, no, no, no. Like, I'm happy. I'm happy with the way I look. I like the dress I chose, whatever. But subconsciously, like in hindsight, I really think that was it. I feel like if I said that to a quote unquote medical professional, they would say I was insane, right? Like that would just be like, no, I don't know what you're worried about with your dress. I just think we're conditioned to believe there is no crossover between the way we feel spiritually, emotionally, and what happens in our body physically. And that's just not true. That's not true. And that lack of information is robbing us of the chance to, I won't go as far as say cure ourselves, but to at least understand ourselves a little bit more clearly. And as you said, maybe just reveal some of these things that are actually going on with us, our own feelings about our own lives, like just kind of unmasking those things through this presence that you described with your morning routine. I think that's a really powerful message to share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And this is always how it is for me. It's never just one thing, right? So if we go to the doctors with symptoms, we're going to get maybe one piece of the puzzle, but then there's more. And I always, encourage the women that I'm working with. It's like sometimes we need to look further back. Maybe there are experiences that you had when you were younger. And I love in some ways this hindsight because we have more awareness, more experience, more wisdom where we're sitting right now. And so then we can look back on our life and we can start to put the pieces together. And we're like, oh, wow, that experience that I had when I was a child or when I was a teenager and how it might have affected me, how I might have internalized that experience. And this are, our personal experiences, but then again, how our culture influences us as well, right? And so we internalize these things. When I'm looking at women's health and women's healing, it's like, I want to hear your whole story. And then I'm able to really kind of start to see some of the key pieces that maybe have gotten woven in to your pelvic health, right? And so we might look at tension patterns. Like that's what you were just talking about, right? Like an upcoming wedding can create tension. That tension then creates this constriction in your pelvic space, right? This is the place of your root, your foundation. A wedding is like, that's a foundational life changing moment. And so then we grip, we tighten around the things that are like place of home, security, right? This is really the home of the pelvis. And then that tension can lead to other symptoms, which might show up then as pelvic pain or tension or incontinence even is oftentimes, and incontinence means like, when you pee, how when you don't want to, coughing, sneezing, jumping, those kinds of things. And we even have a saying like, oh, I laughed so hard I peed my pants. And then we're just taught that that is normal. Well, it's like, it's common. And it is also a sign that there might be some tension in the pelvic system. And so awareness is part of it, right? Having awareness of what's going on in our life, having presence, being able to attune into our body. We can also bring our own hands-on touch in, right? So we aren't taught about our anatomy, our female anatomy, but then we also aren't taught how to touch ourselves. When I'm talking about touching ourselves, I'm talking about like we can place our hands on our belly and bring some gentle touch on our skin, but we've got organs in there as well. Sometimes I feel like we don't really think about like we got a whole community inside of us. It's like our bladder, our rectum, our uterus, our liver, gallbladder, stomach, spleen, all of you just mentioned your kidneys, right? There's a whole community in there. And this is very much intimately tied to our nervous system, to how we're feeling. Sometimes we think about our mind and our heart, but it's like we got a whole community of organs in there. And so to place our hands, to do belly massage, right? Those kinds of things. And then, of course, depending on what is going on, we could really take it down under, right? And start to really look at, oh, right, we have a vulva. We have a vagina. All of these parts of us are literally our roots. Maybe I want to put our anus in there too, right? So here is our basic everyday function of our bodies. And this is really then where that shame takes root in there. It's like, oh boy, I don't want to talk to anyone about what's going on down there. We don't even really want to use the words, right? And this is like, all right, for us to be able to know our anatomy and to know how to tend and care for our anatomy, right? So we don't always have to rely on a doctor. And even I think about pelvic health and womb wisdom. As I said earlier, this is the seat of our life force. And I see our sexuality as our life force energy. This is a fire that we get to tend for ourselves. And if we want to, we might choose to share it with another. But it's ours. It's our life force. It's our power. It's our sacred flame. And oftentimes, I hear so many women, especially as they're kind of move into midlife in particular, it's like they feel like their flame has gone out. Like they feel like they don't have their libido, or they're not feeling turned on, or it's hard to get aroused. And I always say, it's like, we're not 20 anymore, right? It's like when we're young and we've got like that hormones is raging through us, it's like, it's easy to, get aroused. But as we live longer, as we're in different cycles of our life, as we're in, I even want to say long-term relationships with ourselves and with another, we need to tend to our flame. And I really look at our sexuality as like, if you were to build a fire, you would need to put wood on the fire or it's going to go out. And so your life force energy, and we could pair that with our sexuality, we want to be tending to it. We want to be putting wood on the fire. And that means doing things that you love every day, doing things that are pleasurable, not just sexually. It's like, what lights you up in your life? Do those things. And as you're doing them, it's like, this is where we start to blow on the flame of our life force. And that is really the beginnings of our arousal, right? Really wanting to be like turned on by life. And then, of course, we could generate that fire and move it towards more sexual arousal as well. I mean, we want to be doing that. And then we could share it with someone else if we wanted to. But I feel like this is, I just hear this a lot, from so many women. Oh, if I never had sex again, I would be so happy. And I just think, whoa, that's your life force, girl.
Right.
That's
Right.
your
How
fire.
sad.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I love that. I love the way you just explained that as it really being something that we own and that is ours. And then if you want to share it with someone else, of course. But I think we almost always think about sexuality in relation to somebody else and what they think about us, what they're getting from us. Are we enough for this other person or this idea that somebody has of me, even? I love the idea of bringing it back. You've used the word home and, our foundation, like coming back to who we are and being turned on by our own life in all of the facets, not just sexually, but including sexually, right? It's all of the pieces. They're all so connected. So I love that. Like I can picture us like as individuals standing around this beautiful bonfire and like keeping it going in joy, right? Not like hard work, like, oh my God, I have to stand out here all night and tend this fire, but like fueling it with presence and happiness and just kind of being in flow. This is just like the picture I have in my mind, just being in flow with who we are and what we want from day to day.
Yes. And I want to say too that in all truth, life isn't always about pleasure. We also have the other side of things where there is truly things that are difficult and challenging. We always are holding both. We will always have a day with the night. And we've got a masculine and a feminine. We've got a below and an above, right? We always are holding this duality. And we get to choose. And this is why I love my daily devotion practice in the morning is because I'm out there in the morning and I am choosing to live a vibrant, turned on life. And I want to stoke my fire and I'm making a conscious choice to do that. I am choosing to come to my life and to my body in devotion. I want to attune to what is going on inside of me and to place my hands upon my own body. This is it. Like our hands, we are the greatest healers for our own life. When we know, it's like we sense inside of ourselves, something's not right. Right. We know when, and it doesn't again mean that our life is always going to be in perfect flow and that we never have a hard moment. Right. It's like there's moments when we need to just like be in our shadow and get into the grit and, really be in that. And the other side of it is there's also the beauty and the joy and the love and the pleasure that is available to us as well. And we want to be able to, keep this is the harmony of a life is working with that. And so if we find ourselves in a place, I was just thinking about like our physical health and we're getting that nudging inside of ourselves, like something's not right. That's really what I want to say. We need to listen to that. This is where we need to slow down. And oftentimes I'll be like, okay, I got to go to the doctor. And the doctor doesn't know everything, right? You starting to like slow down, place your hands on your body, listen in. So much of the wisdom is held within us. This is why I call it the womb wisdom, right? So if you've got some things, some symptoms that are arising in your, we could say your female anatomy, reproductive area, pelvic region, then let's place your hands on your womb and go, all right, what's here? Right. And if, of course, you've got symptoms showing up in another place in the body, we can still bring our presence and our awareness there and ask these questions. We're talking about the womb health, right? And I just see so much dis-ease happening inside a female body. And really, hysterectomy is the number 2 surgery. I know that in the United States. So that's a lot of wombs that are being removed. And I know that oftentimes women, when they get to the place where they choose to have a hysterectomy, so many of them are so relieved, right? They're like, oh my God, because their suffering is being relieved. Not always, but just naming that for some, because I work with a lot of women. My question is, why are we not addressing further back? Why is there so much suffering that is happening for women in their wombs? That's my deeper place of inquiry, so that we could actually heal what is happening at the root, so that women are not needing to lose their wombs. This is really the heart of the work that I offer. And of course, I did lose my womb to cancer. And so that was my deeper inquiry. Why did cancer take root in my womb? And that, it has been my own personal journey and inquiry, and it's taken me all over the place. It's been the great quest. I've gathered a lot of deep medicine for my own life and beautiful feminine remembrance too that I offer and share. But that's always that piece that I'm feeling is, why is there so much disharmony in the female body in the womb space?
Such a valuable question. And I'm shocked to hear, I did not know that there were that many hysterectomies going on. And I mean, I certainly don't have the answer in one podcast, though I will be pondering it, like what, going back one layer deeper. But what's coming into my mind is pressures of society, for lack of a better way to say it. And I think you mentioned before, like productivity, we name it hustle culture. There's all these different ways that we talk about our day. And sometimes I get swept up in the portal of this podcast and I have, we're having this conversation and I'm thinking like, I am going outside tomorrow morning. I'm going to be like Suzi. I'm going out there. I'm doing this. I'm lifting my hands with my glass of water. I'm going to speak gratitude for the day. And I mean that. Like, I will do it. And I also know that that duality you brought up, that is the ongoing challenge. I mean, if it were simple for all of us to embrace and sustain these practices once we know about them through powerful messages like yours, then we would all do it, right? But there's the demands or what we perceive as these demands. I have to be productive. I have to get to work. I have to get to the gym. I have to get this done for my partner. I have to clean the house. I have to text that person back. Like, it's just have to all day long. And of course, we're the first thing that gets bumped off the list, our own presence and practices. How do you help your clients, or what would you say to us? Like, if I go out there tomorrow and I have this beautiful experience, and yet I know that Friday morning I have an early meeting and it might slip away, like I want to prevent that. I want to invite this type of listening into my life for the long haul. How do we do that in the face of this productivity driven life that we all lead?
Thank you. This is such a great question. And what I love is that every single day we are given a new opportunity to begin again. This is why I love my daily devotion practice. And I really never miss a day. And so this is the practice of it, is that every day, I mean, of course, we're not guaranteed that we will be here tomorrow, but, hopefully we can just keep going and we can just keep blessing our lives. And so part of it here again is the awareness, just like we were talking about the awareness of the body. It's the awareness of your rhythm. When you find yourself in that hustle, when things are really like moving fast, it's like, oh, wow, okay, I got to take a pause, take a breath. There's a different rhythm that is available to me. This is where we start to like grip and tense. And this is what I'm teaching the women that I work with is like, oh, wow, we can take a moment, pause, take a deep breath down into the pelvis, into the roots, let our jaw relax. Breathe all the way down into the yoni. Okay, then we can start to move from there. And I know that it's a practice, but the practice begins with the awareness. I love this. It's like we're going to forget and then we're going to remember again. And then we're going to forget and then we're going to remember. This is the practice of it. We are not going to get it right all of the time. We are not perfect beings. And I love these just simple places where we can check in again with ourselves. That's why I like the morning practice, because it's like, all right, first thing before I do anything else, I'm going to go and I'm going to stand outside and I'm going to bless my life. At least I'm going to say thank you for my life. Just to breathe a breath of gratitude out there, wherever it is that you live. Then you can get into your day. And there might be moments where you take a pause. I always love to go outside. That's always kind of my rhythm. When I get caught up in the busyness and the fullness of life, it's like, all right, take a pause, go outside, feel my feet, take in a breath. It's like we could get kind of tunnel vision, right, with our vision. And it's like, oh, right, yes, there's a whole world out here. Then we can start to bring that, and again, hands on your body, and start to feel in again. And forgive yourself, right? We can be so hard on ourselves about all of the ways that we're not enough and not doing enough. And we get so swept up in that. This is where, again, if we can slow down, have some compassion, move at a different rhythm, and remember that every day we get this gift of beginning again, right? And this is the practice. This is like all my years of teaching yoga. I always said the hardest part of doing a yoga practice is actually getting on the mat. Once you're on your yoga mat, you're in, right? So this practice, right? It's like we can just take a moment and pause and reset at any time. And for me, it's hands on my body, take a pause, take a breath, and we get to begin again. And it begins with that presence and the awareness of it.
I love the grace you're giving us with that. I feel like I already feel I'm breathing with you as you're doing this. And I already feel relieved in some sense that, I don't have to be upset if I do it for 2 days and then Friday I don't do it. Right. And even hearing the things that you're saying, putting our hands on our bodies, taking a deep breath, that is available to us all the time, not just starting over on a Monday or starting the next morning or whatever. And I think we need those reminders. I almost feel, and maybe this is just something I do, listeners, I don't know if any of you do this. Sometimes it's like I'm seeking something so big, right? Like, okay, well, what's the whole new routine? What's my whole new practice, my whole new ritual? Like, I have all these great ideas and inspiration from listening to this. Like, I'm going to hit it hard, which is in many ways the problem, right? It's that approach, like bringing that conditioned approach into this, and like, it's okay to not do it at that level. As you said, awareness is the first step. Just doing this once would be amazing progress. And then, of course, things build and it gets easier. And then you experience the benefits. And as you said, we forget and then we remember. I think that's a beautiful phrase that encourages us without feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming to add to our life. It can be really small.
My dogs are howling in the background. You might hear them. Whenever Canadian geese fly overhead, I've got these two big Alaskan Malamutes. They have to sing along when the geese are honking, so I can hear them over there.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. What I'm feeling too is I find this to be really helpful is whenever we're wanting to do something new, this is kind of the way that I trick my own mind. I always feel like we can do anything for a week. We can even really do anything for a month. And so sometimes when I'm wanting to do something new, like, oh, I want to start my day every morning with a simple blessing of gratitude. And so I like to look at the calendar and go, okay, I might start tomorrow, but maybe I've got a lot of things on my calendar and it feels like, oh, that's just impossible. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to do that. So it's like set a start date, just like you and I have this date on the calendar, right? And it's like, okay, I want to start doing this daily devotion practice and I'm going to do it every day for a month and I'm going to show up for myself and I'm going to, keep it really simple and I'm going to hit that start date. And then we do it and we show up for ourselves. And this then starts to build the rhythm. We might call it a habit, but I think about more of the rhythm of it, the flow of it, where we remind ourselves every day, I'm going to go outside and say a blessing for myself, bless my life. And then we do it and we do it and we do it. At the end of a month's time, it's like, woo, I did it, celebration. And we can decide then, do I want to keep going? Is this serving me? Is it helping me in my life? And then we can do it again. And it might become something where you just end up doing it all of the time. And sometimes life gets in the way. We might take a trip. We might have family that arrives, and then we kind of move out of our rhythm, and then we can begin again. And so just really wanting to say again, it's not about doing it perfectly. I never want to be adding more to-dos to our already full lives. So when women come and work with me, and I always want to offer in, I call them just simple, practical tools for our everyday life. I want you to be able to add these things on to what it is that you are already doing. right? So even when you wake up in the morning, you could place your hands on yourself and just bless yourself. It's like, oh, here I am. Greet yourself in a beautiful way, right? Because maybe going outside and doing your daily devotion isn't going to work for you, or even taking a moment at the end of the day. It's like, where can we already add these moments in? I teach a lot of breath work. It's like when we drive in the car, guess what? Wherever you go, you're breathing. It's just the awareness of it then, right? We don't have to think about our breath. But when we're driving in the car, we could be like, oh, wow, I'm going to take a few breaths down into my belly while I'm driving. And that brings presence, right? Instead of being caught up in our thinking mind, we bring our awareness a little bit lower, down into our bowl, into our roots, right? What can we do instead of having a whole bunch of more things that we have to do?
Suzi, I love the way you're bringing awareness to all of us, whether it was on our mind or not, to go this deep when we press play on this. And I just feel like there's so much here. I can tell that this conversation is like the tip of the iceberg for your knowledge and the passion and understanding and everything that you're doing to truly support women through this work. So, in closing, I'm sure we could have a whole other conversation, but while we're here, what final message, like for every woman, every person who's listening to this and has kind of had their mind opened to this part of ourselves as individuals and is curious about this moving forward, what's like one final thing that you would like to leave us with as we just go embody this as through the rest of our day?
What I'm feeling in my heart after this conversation, and I love it. We could have gone anywhere, right? But I'm just feeling, this is your one beautiful, precious life. And you get to really tend to yourself and be in devotion to yourself. So, what is that going to be like for you? And, for me, this is womb wisdom, pelvic health, just to come back to the beginning of our conversation. This is what it means to me, is just to be in devotion to your life, whether it's saying a blessing in the morning or bringing your hands onto your body and taking in a breath. Is like, what do you need? And can you listen and follow that rhythm for yourself today, to really allow yourself to give yourself that permission to do that for you? I feel like sometimes we look so outside of ourselves for what we should be doing and who we are. And really, this is about listening inside. What do you need? And it can be so simple that way. And if you want to explore, what womb wisdom, pelvic health might mean for you, right? There's so many resources out there, and I'm so happy to connect with anyone. I do have my podcast, Tending the Sacred. There are, different offerings that I have, but it's really, truly your hands on your body and with your breath is where we begin.
Thank you so much for coming to do this. Thank you for sharing this. And yes, we will put all of your resources, your website, your podcast in the show notes. Where is the best place? If somebody's listening and they're like, oh my God, I got to talk to this woman, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
Well, everything's out there on Instagram. That's the easiest place because you'll find everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll make sure that that is linked. Thank you for spending this time with us. I'm so inspired by you, and I'm excited to continually learn from you and embrace these practices and eye-opening shifts that you have shared in my own life.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm so grateful to be here and just sending a lot of blessings out there to all of you that are listening in. Yeah, just sending you some good wishes today.
Thank you for listening. Now I want to hear what you learned. DM me on Instagram at Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman or leave a review with your top takeaway. These ratings really do make a difference. If you're not a member of the Curious Life Club yet, you are invited. Visit CuriousLifeOfAChildFreeWoman.com to join the conversation, share suggestions, and be first to know the next curious topic. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.